I'm Elizabeth Stephenson with New Direction Family Law, and we're here with our first Family Law Uncorked. With me is Sarah Hink, who's another law partner at the firm, and we have Lori Thomas with WIN Psychological Services. And today we're going to be talking about parent coordinators. So, Sarah, I don't know if you just want to sort of give a general overview of what they might be and why people might need one.
Sure. Well, from an attorney perspective, we have cases where a judge might find that there's high conflict between parties, parents, and they aren't really able to communicate well with each other. They might have different communication styles, and there's decisions that may be made concerning a child, but they aren't able to work together to make those decisions in the best interest of the child. So oftentimes a judge will appoint someone like Lori, to help with the decision making and talk to the parties and see if they can get the parties and the parents to agree on something. And if not, sometimes the parenting coordinator will get the final say in that decision.
Right. So what is somebody, well wait, your first was WIN Psychological Services.
WIN's Family Psychology. Yeah.
Who we love, and we refer a lot of our clients there because part of separation and divorce, if you have children, is learning how to parent separately and in different houses, but co-parenting together to do what's best for your children. So Lori is a parent coordinator. So give a little bit of background about how do you become a parent coordinator? What's involved and what kind of skills do you need, especially for parents in high conflict cases?
Well, so in order to become a parent coordinator, that's usually covered by the statute in your state, in a particular state. And so I had to have specialized training as a parent coordinator. Once you get the training, then you're certified as a parent coordinator. And then in this county, I had to go ahead and apply to become a part of the court list. And the court had to approve me. Wade County had to approve me to be on its list.
So who comes to you? Who needs a parent coordinator?
Well, so typically parent coordinator sort of came out of the whole, divorce happens at a pretty high rate. While most families sort of kind of approach a new normal after within a couple of years, there's a small percentage of families who really struggle with being able to make some of those, day-to-day decisions for their children. And so parent coordination sort of sprung out of that. The need to help parents who are typically in higher conflict be able to work together in the best interest of their child.
So Sarah, for our clients, what would be a typical client maybe that you might say to them, hey, this might be a good idea for you, let's explore it and see if the judge can appoint one for us?
It really is those cases where the communication seems to fail and the parents just, after one case after another, when they're trying to work together to make big decisions on schooling or healthcare decisions, or even who holds the passport, who has the social security card, and the parents just cannot seem to communicate and work with each other to agree on these things that are very important to be on the same page about.
Right, and judges appoint them, and parents can do it on their own, but it has to be found to be a high conflict case. And I've had a lot of judges, and you probably have too, to say, this is a high conflict case, and I'm going to appoint one whether the parents want one or not.
Right.
They just see that so much.
Yes.
So when parents come to you, if they're high conflict, it's generally at the beginning of the process or not? Is it right after separation, or
Well, usually I think it happens where parents have been going through the system for a long time. So what happens typically with these families who are more in conflict is that they utilize the legal system to help resolve some of these conflicts. And so I think what you see typically is that at some point down the line, when they've had a number of cases, people have attempted, to kind of, it's a way, I guess, in some ways, of curing some of the conflicts.
Right, and getting stopping them to not have to go to court so much.
Right.
So what kind of decision making do you usually have in your cases as being a parenting coordinator? Because we know that in court you get a whole list of decisions that the parenting coordinator can make and advise on. So what is the biggest ones?
I mean, sometimes parent coordinators, they're making decisions about, it may be whether the kids get to stay in a particular sport, whether they, because sometimes there's a lot of conflict for parents about whether a child, gets to continue their sport when they're on the other parent's time.
Right.
So typically, there's some conflict that arises about that, and sometimes even in choosing, what sport the child plays or what schools a child might go to. So I mean, there are sometimes it's sort of a routine kind of decision making that you would think. It's a lot of it is geared around time, like how do you negotiate the time
that you have? That's right, because you only have half the time now,
so you want to
make the best of it.
So you want to make the best of it.
But you guys really can. You can do almost anything except change the custody schedule, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So I mean, what the parent coordinator is able to do is really going to be talked about in the plan or the court order that comes up in terms of what are the limitations or the expectations of the parent coordinator.
Right. And so what's the process? I know that parent coordinator gets appointed. There's an appointment conference where the judge sort of tells everybody what's going to happen and how things work. And then do you meet with the parents individually, together? Does it depend on the family?
Well, so that's going to probably vary somewhat by the training that the parent coordinator receives and the parent coordinator themselves. So this is maybe where you get into some of the differences, perhaps between therapist, parent coordinator, perhaps an attorney parent coordinator. So as a the way that I was trained as a parent coordinator is that you meet together with the family first and attempt to try to set up some ground rules and establish some ways of operation, and then you want to meet with them together frequently on an ongoing basis. Now I understand that that does not apply to every PC or preference. Sometimes those interactions happen through email or through other kinds of media.
Right, and I find parent coordinators, a lot of my cases are one parent lives out of state, so that makes it tricky for visitation and custody anyway. So is it when things arise, you're there to, like, we can't agree on, I don't know, where they're going to go to school. And so if parents can't agree, then somebody reaches out to you, and then do you listen to each side and sort of weigh out and make the decision?
So hopefully early on in the process you set up, if you're working together, you've set up some kind of procedure process about how they're going to make some decision making. What are the important issues for the families? And so you have those sort of central and try to get an understanding of how those things will work between the parents. And then you go through, so if as it comes up, the issues come up, you then try to return back to that original sort of agreement and things that they were working toward and help to remind them. And in some cases, I think the parent coordinator just has to
make you just got to do it because they can't.
Because they just are not able to. If some of the parents that we're working with were able to do that,
it would
they wouldn't necessarily need a parent coordinator.
And some judges and oftentimes attorneys will recommend to their clients that they voluntarily participate in co-parenting therapy. Now, is that something you offer, and how does that differ from being a parenting coordinator?
Well, so sometimes it's really difficult because of the confusion. The terms are so similar. But so one of the probably the primary differences between the co-parent therapy and the parent coordinator is that in co-parenting, the parents are coming together. Sometimes it's on their own. Sometimes it's in the court order. But they're really trying to work together to have a collaborative relationship in their parenting. And so there's not necessarily a mandate on them. And the person who's working with the two families, you're not necessarily mandating any kind of decision making. You're helping them to resolve the conflicts and to come up with in a way, a best practices way of sort of parenting.
That's a really great way to do that. I like that.
So that they can communicate and do those things on their own.
Yeah.
However, a parent coordinator, it's different because you ultimately can make that decision. You may be called upon and be asked to make that decision on behalf of the parents.
So maybe co-parenting therapy will help you not get to the point of having a judge or being required to have someone that's not a parent to the child making decisions that they should make.
Yeah, and incidentally, I think that generally with co-parenting therapy, usually it won't work if the parents are in high conflict because again, they're assumed to be on equal level, right? And so you might not. That might not be the case. So you would have a family who is probably a little bit more primed, I guess you would say, to be able to resolve conflicts together.
That's a great, but I mean that just brings up a thought of you're the parent coordinator, but you're really, that would go great hand in hand though, because at some point these parents gotta learn to to do it on their own,
They should.
or they should,
Yeah.
but you're not, I mean, are you modeling sort of that co-parenting for them, even though you're the parent coordinator, in hopes that they will sort of latch on to that in some way?
Well, I mean, that's, I think, the ultimate goal is that you want to be able to remove the PC, right?
Right.
You don't want to have that. So, yeah, you are going to be wanting to work together to model communication and help the families be able to do those to have those skills and use them, because you can't be there with them all the time. And so the hope is that they'll get to that place. I mean, oftentimes you will, in certain high conflict cases, you probably do need a PC in order to put strength behind the co-parenting work, because sometimes in co-parenting, parents can just decide they don't want to do the work anymore.
Right.
And sometimes it's really helpful. I think co-parenting is actually much more effective if you have a PC who says, you guys need to
That's a
do
great
some of that
idea.
work. So it's really helpful.
Love
Yeah.
that. I'm gonna have to remember that.
Right,
I
yeah.
love that.
There's so many cases where the parents have such different personalities, and it's, they have a child together, and now they somehow have to bridge that difference between someone being very dominant or having one personality where they communicate this way, and having someone that might completely shut down, and then they can't agree at all on decision making and what the child should do, and then if there's ever any anger involved and resentment towards the other person, then they
Never happens.
never happens. Now you need someone to come in and try and be realistic with both of them.
Right.
That's very helpful, of course.
So are you sort of like a tough love?
Well, I guess it depends. I think generally I tend to be a little bit more, direct in communication. So maybe it would probably be characterized as tough love.
So is there part of the court order for a parent coordinator is how we share the cost, because there is a cost involved.
Yes.
And so generally, sometimes it's 50-50, sometimes it's based on what your incomes are in a pro rata share, but let's say that mom's calling you 10 times a day and dad's not. I mean, is there a way to apportion that in a different way? Do you have that authority? Because that's a kind of an issue for folks financially.
Yeah, well, I think that you do sometimes, you will have to resolve some of those payment issues because they do come up, and you'll have to, sometimes you'll have to just sort of decide, well, you give them a warning, hey, this is what's happening, and the next time this happens, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
And so to try to, because there is a contract or agreement that they sign at the beginning, of course, and so, you really want to remind them of what they agreed to in the beginning, and also say because of, you're calling me 10 times a day, and this issue has already been resolved, or how do we, I'm going to, charge you for that particular meeting. This comes up.
Not very often.
It comes up in other cases too.
Right.
We at Wynn's Family, Psychology, we work a lot with parents who are in divorce situations and conflict, and so it happens all the time that there's some kind of dispute, between higher conflicts.
So with our clients, we have confidentiality between attorney clients and what we discuss. We're not going to go in court and be called to testify against our own client. That's not going to happen. Yeah. So. Is there client confidentiality between you and the people that you're a parenting coordinator for, or are you allowed to go testify?
Well, I think that that's another thing that is different about parent coordination, because generally as a psychologist, if I'm meeting with a client, then they have confidentiality and they have to sign releases and whatnot. But in the case of parent coordination, there's limits. There's no. It's a non-confidential process, and so the parties know that. At the beginning, they have to understand that there are going to be reports filed to the court. There might be reporting to attorneys who are involved, and so they know up front that this is a non-confidential process. We still, and also if they're involved with other providers, so maybe as a PC you determine that a parent needs to have individual therapy, and we refer them out for those services, because that's one of the things, you can't mix roles. If you're a PC, if I'm a PC for somebody, I can't also be their therapist.
Right.
So I refer them out for services, and then the PC, as a PC, the PC can talk to that therapist, and they need to there's some gray area, I guess, there in terms of what the confidentiality is.
Yeah. So I find that judges really, because you got two parties, and generally it's a he said, she said, and it really comes down to credibility a lot of times, but you guys are sort of, you don't have a dog in this fight, and other than, I'm assuming, the best interest of the child, and I think the court really listens to you folks.
Yeah, so it's the best interest of the child, absolutely, and I think, you're supposed to be a person that's really focused on, a provider that's really focused on the child's interest, regardless of whatever the conflict is, or the pullings of the individual parent.
Right. So do you see any advantages to a therapist as a PC or an attorney as a PC for clients? Is there one better than the other? Depend on the client?
I think it should probably depend on the client so much, but so far I haven't seen a huge difference, but talking to you, I think that there is. And I think a lot of attorneys might be more conditioned to just, this goes on, this is normal, this conflict, this is it, I'm just going to decide, instead of what it sounds like you actually engage with the parents and help them to try and relieve them, because oftentimes the orders just require a year or 2 years of having a PC involved, and the hope is that after that order's over in a year, that you're not back in court and having another PC appointed to actually encourage parents to work together. So I think that's the benefit of having someone that's not just the attorney who's just saying, okay, well, I can decide, I have a piece of paper that says I can decide. So I think that's a huge benefit for people to have a therapist be able to work with them.
Well, as a therapist, I would agree.
Yes, I'm sure.
They really do. I mean, I believe that because, I mean, at some point, these folks have got to learn to parent on their own, and if you don't help them through that process, then I think you're right. Like an attorney would, our mindset is, okay, well, here are the facts, here's this, that's not okay, here's the decision. But it sounds like you engage them a little more.
Well, so I just think that it just, I think it's probably style. And each style is there might be some styles that fit better with some some families, some people that you become engaged with, and maybe even as a therapist, I might become much more directive if there's higher conflict and we're not really getting anywhere. So, I think that it just depends. But, obviously as a psychologist, I have a kind of a different background. And I mean, actually, if I wear my psychologist hat, because I'm also trained as a lawyer, but, if I wear my psychologist hat, we have a whole history of child development and all of those things that we bring to the table that I think adds to that.
Right. So what can folks do not to end up with you as their PC? I mean, can you just give like the top 5 things you would say to parents going through separation divorce with children, what to do or not to do?
Well, I often say, because like I said, we work with folks who are in all phases of the divorce process, but I often tell people in the beginning, I know this is one of the worst moments in your life, and we're asking you to be absolutely well behaved, and we're asking you to do all of these things and perfect. But I say, if you can focus on some of the real, the goals, to focus on your children, because I think that sometimes can be the thing that guides you through all of the darkness in a way. So being able to sort of know that the children are there and they really need you. So that's one thing. I often tell people there are going to be many changes in your life, but the one constant is that person that you're co-parenting with is going to be the co-parent. Right? That part is not going to change. So you might change residences and locations and things like that. I also say to people, if you're really struggling with this, get help for yourselves.
We always tell our clients that.
This is a really stressful time. It's really, people feel a mixture of feelings, loss and failure and all those things, and that it's really important to get those things because previously, when I lived in Pennsylvania, I was a mediator, and I would say to people, feelings get in the way of people making agreements.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. So I say that often. I say feelings get in the way of people making agreements, and if you can work and to make sure those feelings get out of the way, then you would see you're more likely to make some kind of consensus, right? So I tell them to focus on their children, get the help that they need, try to take care of themselves in those ways. So it's a lot of, I guess, self-help kinds of things, so that they can kind of, and also. Sometimes what happens for folks who are going through divorce is that their family members are very involved and have lots of opinions, right? Because why wouldn't we? We want to protect the people that we love.
That's right.
So I often say, hey, you're the one that's going through this, and you're the one that has to, that's going to be there in the end. Your family, they care about you and they support you, conflict, but they're sort of are suspended in time, the time when
Right.
that bad thing happens between the two of you.
Right.
You're going to move on from that.
Right.
And
And
so,
they're a party to the conflict. It's easy for them to stand on the sideline and be like, you should not agree to that.
You should not do
You're
that.
angry and then don't do that. But at the end of the day, they get to go home and they aren't the ones that are with the child every night.
That's right.
And
That's
trying
exactly
to build
right.
a relationship as a parent with the other person.
Yes.
Right, because
That's
you're going to see
huge.
them at high school
Yeah.
graduation and weddings and
Right.
babies,
That's
and for the
right.
next
That's
50 years, you're going to see
It
this
doesn't
person.
stop at 18, I'm sure.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's right.
Yeah, and then also to get educated about the process. I like
Absolutely.
people to know
We
a
do
little
too.
bit
Yeah.
about what's going to happen, and because I think that reduces a little bit of the
Yeah.
anxiety, and so for them to think about, well, what is it that they see long term for their kids?
Right, and that's sort of what we ask in an initial consultation, and sort of what is your goal?
Right.
You know, let's see what that is, and then when they sort of figure out what that is, then we can do the roadmap and help them get there, which I'm sure is the same thing you guys can do.
Yeah.
Well, Lori, thank you so much for joining
thank
us
you.
today. It was
Enjoyed
great.
talking with you.
So tell folks how they can get in touch with you or win psychological family services. I know I'm not saying that right, but
So it's
Kristen
Wiz.
won't kill me.
It's Wynn's Family Psychology. Well, you can go to our website at winsfamilypsychology.com, and you can call us using our main number 919-467-777, and you can schedule, talk to one of our staff who are really great at helping direct you to where you need to. And certainly, if you're wanting PC services, then I would be the one at the practice that you would be directed to.
That'd be great. But we love you guys. We send so many clients. You do individual, family, children, adults. You just do the whole gamut.
Well, yeah, so we're a child and adolescent practice, but we sort of work on all aspects, parent coaching if they need it. We deal with children and adolescents, very young ones, all the way up to adolescents, and we also work with families who are in conflict.
Yeah. And
We
it's
do a lot of, we
Yeah.
also have, we call it our forensic team. We have about 3 or 4 psychologists who focus on cases that have a legal part. So we do psychological evaluations for
Do
the court.
custody
Custody
evaluations.
evaluations, co-parenting. So we do some of those, many of those aspects where there's interface with law and psychology.
And you're hopeful for the parents out there? They can do it? They can work together?
Oh, I have lots of hope. I bring it with me. I tell them, I know you guys may not have the hope, but I
No,
know
we
hope
do.
for
We
you.
do. We want it.
We always say
It is the goal.
It is.
Yeah.
They always come out better on the exit. Like you said, it's always icky right now, but they always come out better.
Yes,
So.
absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you guys for joining us. Share this video if you know anyone who's having conflict or going through separation and divorce, and give us a call. You can visit our website at newdirectionfamilylaw.com. So bye. Thanks.
Thank you.